Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It has been a few months, but I think I have found my stability in my program now, so I'm hoping that like once a week or every fortnight I'll be able to make a video. At least, you know, if I can just get a video out monthly, that would be really great. Again, please, if you have any recommendations for video ideas or questions that you would love to hear me explore to do with studying or studying psychology, leave them down below and I will get around to making those videos. And no pressure to, because you don't have to, but I did open up a buy me a coffee. Obviously it does take time to make the videos, and any sort of contributions or nod that people are sort of getting something out of the content and encouragement to make the content is very much appreciated. Otherwise, a simple thumbs up, subscribing, or a really nice comment, even just a question, is also a great contribution. But yeah, check out Buy Me a Coffee. No pressure to do it, but I just thought I would mention it. Right, so last time I saw you, I announced that I had gotten into the Masters of Clinical Psychology, which at the time I don't think I had even fully processed because I didn't get in the first time I applied. So it was just like, seriously, like, did I actually get in? I am now 4 months into that, soon to be 5 months. And oh my goodness, like it has been incredible. It has been such an amazing journey so far. And the idea too that the clinical program goes for 2 years, but I'm already like almost halfway through the first year. It's just crazy to break it down like that because it does go really quickly. And my first piece of advice is for anybody who wants to take on a master's program, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged by how many years the degree takes, because at the end of the day, time flies by. And better that if that's what you really want, if you really want the career that the degree is going to get you, better you do those 1 or 2 years. And that's like a really good trade-off for the rest of your life. So 2 years going into the master's degree, I was like, oof, like it's a long time, especially since I had deferred. So I had taken that break and I was away from study. I was in, you know, back in the real world. It seemed like a really long time. Oh my gosh, I'm almost down to like, oh, I have 1.5 years left, which will turn into a year, and that will go very quick. I had forgotten that things like assignment dates and meeting dates, they make the weeks fly by. Whew. So yes, I have successfully gotten through my first semester of year 1 of the degree. Now, obviously I'm studying at one of the main universities. I can't talk on behalf of all of them, so it's tricky, right? Like I can give advice, but I can't give advice across the board. But I am assuming that because all the psychology programs have to meet accreditation, that they're all doing a very, very similar thing. Like I would imagine that it's almost replicated across the board. The only things I can't advise on, you know, are things that are more specific to a university, such as their teaching staff or their timetabling, how efficient they are. But I'm just going to talk more about the actual units, the workload, the assessments, and doing placement, doing internal placement. So that's the stuff I'm going to be referring to, because I can't speak more specifically about master programs in terms of the teachers are really great or like the teachers are harsh. Where I'm studying though, I am incredibly lucky. The teaching staff are insanely kind and patient, and they're just passionate about what they do. And we are constantly encouraged to ask questions, to not stress. You're a student, you're supposed to be learning, you're not supposed to know everything. I have immediate respect for anybody who encourages asking questions. I have been in situations before, especially in undergrad, where you ask a question and you're almost ridiculed publicly for doing so. I do not support that. As far as I'm concerned, that is bullying. That is unrealistic. I'm also paying money to be taught, so I expect questions to be answered. At the same time, I always try to bring my own critical thinking skills to the table. So yeah, the teaching staff where I am studying, I have loved that. It's alleviated so much stress. You know, we're encouraged to like, these are your provisional years. This is where you can make mistakes because you have a team behind you, your supervisors, to step in. That, just knowing and being told that, has made the world of difference. So in terms of workload, obviously, like, we all hear a master's degree and we're like, oh my god, masters, like how does one do this? It's so advanced and blah blah blah. Can I be honest? So far, honors was like 30 times harder than these last 5 months. No words for how intense. And I think that's because with honors you have the stress of grades, whereas in masters you do not have the stress of grades. Where I am studying, you just have to pass, and we have actually been encouraged to not stress over the academic work, just get it done. That's obviously hard. It's hard to get away from that mindset, because to get into a master's degree in psychology is so reliant on you being obsessive, and you have to sort of unlearn all those, dare I say, unhealthy behaviors that you develop to meet the grades, to keep up with the programs. But yeah, once you get into masters, it's really about becoming the best clinician that you can. So whilst there are written assignments, you're no longer in that environment where you're like, oh my god, like I need 80 to prove I'm the best, because you're already in the degree. There is nowhere to go from the Master of Clinical Psychology, to my knowledge. A lot of the assignments as well, it's been very much a case of they're incredibly manageable, so you can get them done, or at least I've been able to get them done in like 1 to 3 days, which is a huge cry from undergrad, where it would take me weeks to get an assignment done and I'd be constantly reading over it and stressing about it. So it's just a very different atmosphere. It's a different vibe. The assignments very much overlap with, you know, skills that you need in the clinic to be a psychologist. So there's a bit more application there, and they sort of make a lot more sense. The assignments are done in a way that just sort of complements the classes that you're taking, and you just get everything done in a timely manner. I will say that when you're doing the Master of Clinical Psychology, there is a research component. You will have to write a thesis. Now, I am not up to any of the nitty-gritty of like, you know, doing ethics or submitting a proposal, this and that. All I've done so far is get a supervisor, discuss, you know, what it is I want to look at, and write a literature review. Now, this literature review has been massive. It's been a lot of words, and I've had to get it done in a short period of time. And this literature review has been the cause of a lot of internal stress. There was actually a night where I couldn't really sleep because it was playing on my mind. Now, that's like the first assignment since the beginning of the year that's brought me back to like the undergrad years. But what got me through it was just, you know, leaning more on my ability and being like, you know what, I think I can be quicker with this. I don't think I have to go slow and just obsess over it, because I wrote a literature review in undergrad. I actually topped the class. I got the highest literature review grade out of my entire honors cohort. So I'm like, I'm just gonna trust myself. And I also don't need to go for the 80% anymore. I just need to pass this thing, because you've got so much going on with the clinic. Like, you're seeing clients and you have to do work around that. So it's very much, you work out what's a priority to you in masters, and I think that's how you navigate your schedule and keep sane. It is impossible to do everything absolutely perfect. You will get no rest. So yeah, with the literature review, I started off really stressing about that. And I have never written anything so quickly in my life, but you know what? I got it done, and I'm thinking I'm gonna wait for my grade for that review. Depending what the grade is, I think I am going to finally do like a dedicated how to write a literature review tutorial, because I have always, you know, I've watched countless ones and I kind of was like, okay, taking a little bit from this, taking a little bit from that, but no one tutorial felt perfect. I think I've actually sort of hacked like how to do a literature review. So I just want to wait for that mark just to make sure I'm not like ill-advising other people. But yeah, I wrote it really quickly. I sent a draft in. I have to edit that like today or tomorrow, and it's out of my hands. I'm not worrying about it. I'm not going to be a perfectionist about it. It's not realistic. I don't have time. So that's very much like the master's attitude at the moment towards coursework. Now, when it comes to coursework though, that's to do with like write an assessment report for a client you're seeing. Okay, that's where you're probably going to want to put more effort and more time. You know, I had to write a formulation, a CBT formulation, and I can tell that just saying that, if you haven't done one, sounds super overwhelming. Again, it is, you know, it's laid out in a way where you learn the skill fresh, then you do the assignment. So you don't need to know what all of that is now if you're not in masters. The only takeaway from what I'm saying is that the assignments are very closely linked to what you're learning, and it just sort of all falls together, where even though May was a really like hectic month of, oh my god, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this, you get through it. You get through it. It's not the end of the world. I personally only had classes this semester. I had a full day of classes and then a 2-hour block on another day. So it's very different to undergrad where you might have like classes all spread out across the week, and you know, getting to class, public transport, driving, it takes up a lot of time. You meet up with friends, you grab lunch, you go home, you're tired. I think with masters it's a lot more manageable timetable wise. I'm going to assume that a lot of universities keep the same structure, because for 2 days every week I actually have to work at the clinic. And when I'm at the clinic, I mean, if I don't have a client, I can get school work done there. So, you know, you even have a little bit of leeway timetable wise with working at the clinic where I'm at. Hopefully it's the same in other universities. But yeah, it's just very different. And I think the thesis for me hasn't felt so, I haven't panicked about the thesis. I mean, maybe I will at some point, but there's just, you've got 2 years and it's all going to be like, I like to always break things down. And if all I had to do this semester was write a literature review plan and the literature review, then that's all I had to do. I don't need to worry about next semester. I don't need to worry about next year. I like to very much just take it as it comes. If you sit down and start thinking about, I have to write a literature review and then do an ethics proposal and this, you're gonna like send yourself insane, you know? Like, you can't think of it because you're not doing it all at once. You're breaking it up, you're doing it in pieces, and they know that, and that's why they have obviously, you know, put it out the way they have. I can tell that it's probably going to fluctuate in terms of stress levels. Like the last 3 weeks, okay, so when I started masters, let's go right back to the start of semester 1. For like the first 4 weeks, my cohort were all just like, we've got nothing to do. Like, we would go to classes, we would like do our readings. We hadn't started in the clinic yet, but we were like, we've got no homework. So it felt like the calm before the storm. And then, yeah, these past few weeks have actually been very intense with like, I just need to get things done and I need to work. But now it's calm again, and I'm very happy about that, and I'm gonna hold on to it. So I think that it's just gonna fluctuate throughout the year. But I will be prepared for that, and I'll be more confident too in my own ability to trust that I can do this and I can do that. And the other crazy thing with clinical psychology is how quickly you do develop skills. Now in my course, you know, everyone's sitting there at the start of the year like, I have to sit with a client. Like, I've never done this before. They pushed us to work with clients very early on, and yeah, we just went from sitting there like, how do you do this, to doing it. And the band-aid gets pulled off pretty quickly. Obviously it's normal to worry about that and doubt yourself and be like, can I actually do this? But in our class, so that day that we would have of just classes back to back, those were all like skill-based, you know, learning counseling foundational skills, how to do activities with clients, and you would role play. We did so many role plays. Now, I want to warn that role plays can feel really difficult and it can feel clunky and hard and you can get stuck. Role plays are not very, they're good, but they're also not very realistic because there's still that acting component to them, and you know that the other person is not a client. They're a fellow psychology student who has a very comprehensive understanding of mental health. So it's not very realistic, and I think it's easier to actually speak to a client than do a role play. So make use of them, enjoy them. But if you're getting stuck in role plays, just don't beat yourself up over it, because I think that would actually be really normal. Funnily enough, when a psychology student is being your client, they give you so much information that you sit there and aren't really sure what you can say next. A real client is probably going to need a lot more of reflection and paraphrasing and asking questions. It's going to be a lot slower, hopefully, so like to work through everything that they're saying. So that was something that popped up for me. I was not very good at role plays, but for me, touch wood, so far, actually working with clients has felt a lot better. But yeah, you sort of just rip the band-aid off, you call your first client that's allocated to you, you see them, and it's just go, go, go. I think what really makes that a lot easier is the fact that everybody in your cohort is going through the exact same thing. So you don't feel alone. You have so much support from supervisors. They will be there to discuss your clients with you, to guide you on what you should do. They want to hear your opinions, like what do you think? What do you think should happen? I'm also very lucky because where I'm studying, we're very much encouraged to be our own clinician, like develop our own style, and they very much push that sort of individualization. And it's very open-ended. We do unstructured interviews. So it is just, it's not very like, I have to ask this and then I have to specifically say this. I personally love that. I love that because I think that's more realistic to when we go out in the real world. And I also was a bit worried. I was worried about like, you know, when you're being taught how to drive a car and the way that you're taught is very rigid, like look, and then look and check that and look here and do it all again, and you're like, no one drives like that. That's kind of what I thought training as a psychologist might be like, where it's very much, you know, your professor does it this way, so you have to mimic that, which I don't think is realistic, because psychologists do have their own style and they have different ways that they like to do things, as long as it's all ethical. So yeah, I really liked being given that space. It's a little bit scary because there is a safety net with structure. There is a safety net with like, you have to do it by the book. But I'm learning that, yeah, I can be more flexible with my approach, and it's okay. So I really enjoyed that. But even in saying that, you know, if you're doing something and it's not appropriate, or it's, you know, maybe you're not using the right language or something, your supervisor will tell you that. So again, you're encouraged in the clinic to do your absolute best. Obviously you need to be ethically minded and guided, but if you make a mistake, guess what? That's the point. You're a psychologist in training, you are learning, and your clients know. Your clients know that they've come and they're seeing a provisional psychologist. So funnily enough, in hindsight, seeing clients was not that scary. It's just a lot of the ideas you build up in your head prior to seeing your first client. And I just remember, like, before I was seeing clients, I asked a professor, I asked a second year student, oh, so like, how soon do you let go of those nerves and like trust, because I was so anxious. But you know what, when I had my first independent session with a client, it sort of just went away. And you know, you can't rely on that. Maybe you will be a little bit shaky, but we all know in life that no matter what you do, you are always nervous at the start. There is a little bit of a learning curve. You gain confidence and then you're like, oh, it's not that bad. If you are very nervous about the prospect of actually being a psychologist, just remember that you have a teaching team behind you with decades of experience, and that's their job. Their job is to make sure that you're doing okay. Yeah, it's a learning process, but there's just so much support. So I feel like in terms of talking about coursework, like assignments and seeing clients, those were the two main things I kind of wanted to update you guys on, because I know for myself too that like a master's degree in psychology, it just sounds so overwhelming, because that's when obviously the placements begin, and masters just sounds like tough. Like, how do you have time for anything and yada yada. Now, so far I'm finding that as long as I work Monday to Friday, I very much can have weekends to myself. In honors, I was really bad at boundaries, like study boundaries, and I would, you know, work all through till very late at night. And I don't think that was healthy for me. I think though, okay, I said this to someone in a comment section on another video. Honors goes for a year. If you're doing something for a year that does require you to push yourself a little bit and it's temporary, I don't think it's the end of the world to just do that. So I don't think it was the end of the world for me in honors to be up late at night and like sort of working every day, because it was short. It was like short-term grind for long-term gain. But that is not sustainable. You cannot do that for a long time. And this degree goes for 2 years, and I've got, you know, the anxiousness of seeing clients isn't something that just disappears. Even though you accept that you are capable of doing it, with each new client, you still are gonna feel like, oh my gosh, and that puts stress on your body enough. So I can't really be doing my coursework like late at night and on weekends. I need time to breathe. And I think especially because you are dealing with heavy content, you don't want to burn yourself out. And because there's no need for it. You don't need to be a H1 grade A+ student anymore. You just need to be a dedicated student who really wants to be a great clinician. And I would rather sit down with the CBT book and understand more deeply how to work with a client than stress myself out on a literature review, because the literature review, realistically, it's going to get read for the sake of a grade, is I'm not going for publishing. It's not going to go anywhere after that. So yeah, I'm just being my approach is very different and it's working. I still have time to read. Like, I could never read books in undergrad because who wants to? Like, once you're doing all the other stuff, who wants to pick up a book? Oh my gosh, I've been reading Little Women and Anne of Green Gables and just really fun, beautiful things to, like, you know, feel good before I go to bed. I tend to read before I go to bed, and I think that's a good tip because it like relaxes you and it takes your mind off stuff. I've been able to draw. I did invest in an iPad, so I've been doing digital art, and it's nice to, you know, still be able to do that, because in undergrad, oh my gosh, I would go like chunks of time without painting or doing anything creative. And I think it really showed. Like, I was so stressed out, and I would have moments where you just sort of, you want to quit university, and it's like, well, no wonder, because you're sort of punishing yourself. You're like taking away everything that you find joy and happiness in, and you're just focusing on work, work, work. But in masters, this is now, because working at the clinic is sort of like a job, I think that's just how I'm trying to treat it, and I'm trying to have that work-life balance. And like I said, I think in undergrad though, it is possible. If you can treat undergrad like a full-time job, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. till 5:30 p.m., you should have evenings and weekends to yourself. I didn't think of it like that, but after working last year, because last year I deferred and I worked for like 5 to 6 months, I got into the habit of you go to work, you work from 9 till 5 and you go home. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna apply that to uni. I think too, a large portion of masters is just figuring the process out. So like, you know, you work with clients and you've got all these questions about, but how does this look in session 4 and what's session 6 and how do you wrap up a session, but how does it all go together? And you know, a lot of us felt like information we were learning to do with counseling and CBT interventions and therapy, it was like, oh, they're really good on their own as like bites of parts of therapy, but they feel disjointed, and like we all just wanted to know how it comes together, and we were stressing ourselves out. But the reality is that you just learn it. Like, you just have to do it to actually understand the process of therapy, to really understand what a psychologist is. I mean, this year's been insane, because even though I've wanted to be a psychologist for a long time, like just over half a decade, it's the first time that I've sat back and I'm like, what actually is a psychologist? Like, what is this job? And I think it's a bit of an abstract profession, to be honest, because, you know, with every client, your work may look a little different. And I think any job where you are a sounding board for someone and you are talking with someone, it can be a little bit more abstract, and it can be a bit different. It's not as structured as like, I'm a teacher, so I have to make lesson plans, and then I hold the lessons and I attend the staff meeting and my job is to teach. I think that when you start working as a psychologist, you just learn, like, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting gig. I think it's rewarding. So far, it's working with clients that keeps me motivated, and it reminds me why I'm doing this. And I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to see myself in a year. Like, I can't wait to watch this video back in a year and see where I'm at then versus where I'm at now, and the growth that has occurred, and the confidence and the skills and the abilities. Like, just remember that if you're scared about doing a master's because you don't feel ready, the point of masters is that you're not ready, but it's to get you ready. And hopefully you've had some sort of volunteering or paid work to do with working with people, which pretty much every job is, whether it's fast food or working on a suicide hotline. All these jobs require you to be able to listen to people, actually pay attention to what they're saying, and communicate effectively and work with diverse groups of people. So never discount anything that you've done in terms of, you know, experience relevant to being a psychologist. But just remember that you're not going to start actually acting as a psychologist until you're in the degree. And you're still going to probably stress and whatnot, but I just really want to stress that. And yeah, it's been a wonderful almost 5 months, and I am very excited. I can't believe this year is almost done, because like, to me, the second half is probably just going to fly. Once you start getting into August, the year is done. And then you start thinking about Christmas time. So I've really enjoyed it, and I've had so many moments of just sitting there and being so grateful that I did get in, and all that hard work, you know, it paid off. And at some point it would actually be really great to talk to someone who's in the professional degree, just to, you know, maybe we can do like something on this channel and just discuss a little bit what that experience has been like. But yeah, amazing. If you really want to be a psychologist and work with people, keep studying, persevere and push through. The other really nice thing about being in a master's program, and I'm sure this is the same for the professional degree, is that you're with a lot of like-minded individuals. So when you start the bachelor's degree, there's like, I mean, in my cohort, there was like 500 of us. And so many people, it's not that a lot of people expressed not being passionate about the degree. It was a case of like, I don't know why I'm here, I'm just studying, I just picked it, I'm figuring it out, I want to party, this and that. And I was very passionate, but it was hard to find students who would want to engage about course content, or like were even just excited to talk about their plans for the future. And you know, I was met with a lot of, I remember someone warned me about studying too hard, and they were like, Brooke, like, you don't have to take it so seriously and this and that. And it was just like, oh, I'm actually not, like, I was really motivated and excited, but they just didn't get it because that wasn't a priority for them, which is completely okay. But it's nice now to be surrounded by students who, oh gosh, the similarities are insane, because we all had to have the same approach and the same motivation and the same passion to actually make it into the master's degree. Students who are really keen on like, how do you do this, and oh, that's really interesting, and like discussing the assignments. We're all in the same boat. But yeah, it's just been so nice. And it's funny because I was met with, I guess, a lot of judgments of like being the nerdy person in undergrad by other students who were sort of doing the P's get degrees. But my cohort's really cool, and we all have a great laugh, and we know how to enjoy ourselves. And I think that it's just an interesting experience to go from that, you know, being judged in the 500 people because studying's not cool, or like caring about school or caring about your profession from a young age isn't cool, but now it just makes sense. And like to all of the students, it just makes sense and it falls into place. And you know, we're all excited about the future and actually working with people and making an impact, and it is very lovely and it is refreshing. And I think if you are in undergrad and you're struggling socially and you're struggling to find people who take you seriously, please, I know it's cliche, but believe in yourself. Do not look for other people for validation. You do not need to, if you are not that sort of person who wants to prioritize partying and wasting your time, you don't have to do that, because if you know where you're heading, I think you will be a lot happier when you get there. A lot happier sticking with who you are. Never follow the masses. I feel like that's just the bottom line of what I'm trying to say. And I just feel like in undergrad I was stuck in the masses, but now I'm in my group, I'm with my people, and that feels great, and it's refreshing, and it makes a difference, and it's been a lot of fun. Really cool people. Alright, that is it for this video. I hope in the next video, I'm gonna aim to do something a bit more specific, like a skill, study hacks, how to get into something, processes, something along those lines. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and if you have any comments or questions, just let me know down below. I always try to answer all the comments, and I have used some comments as video ideas on my channel, which has been terrific, because if you have a question, chances are a bunch of other people have that question too. So I will see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time. Bye.